Hey, good to be with you. Danny Pommells here, bringing you on the clock our Eagles mock draft. The opening round is next week, Thursday. It will be here, and let's bring in the principals as we are happy to be joined by Eagles second-round pick and one of the co-hosts of Birds Huddle each and every weekday, Barrett Brooks, as well as the guys from the Eagle Eye Podcast and NBC Sports Philadelphia.com, Reuben, Frank, and Dave Zangaro, our Eagles insiders. And you may not recognize the face, but you know his knowledge. It is Mike Mulhern, our Eagles pre- and post-game producer, as well as Birds Huddle producer. Gentlemen, we appreciate you being here.
Let's do it. Let's have some fun.
That's right.
Yes,
we are gathered here together to join you to these picks in holy matrimony. So please say I do as we proceed here with the opening round. And Rube, you are on the clock representing the Tennessee Titans. What do you have for us?
Well, I was looking for a offensive lineman from Kansas State, but that was 1995, so I got the wrong year here. You know, there hasn't been a Miami Hurricane player drafted number one overall since Russell Maryland in 1991.
Wow.
So that's going to end. Barrett knows him well. Cam Ward from Miami is the obvious pick. The Titans have really been kind of searching for a quarterback for a lot of their existence. Ryan Tannehill did some good things. He was an older guy. Steve McNair had some good years. Mariota here and there. But I think Cam Ward is going to be that franchise quarterback, David. Really great story. Incarnate Word. Has there ever been a number one pick overall from Incarnate Word? And then he goes to Washington State and then really blossoms at Miami. Big arm. He can make throws on the run, on the move when the pocket breaks down. A tough guy. Big plays, big arms. So he can do it all. Best quarterback in this draft, best player in this draft. He goes number one, Cam Ward.
Wow, lofty words about Cam Ward. Very interesting pick because some people think he might slide, but we never know what could happen. But we're going round robin here. So Rube thinks the Titans take Cam Ward. And now Mike Mulhern, you are on the clock with the Cleveland Browns. What do you have?
All right, Danny, with the second pick here, the Browns are going to take Travis Hunter, the corner / wideout from Colorado, the Heisman winner. Simply put, if he was just a receiver, he'd be the first. He'd be a top 5 pick. If he was just a corner, he'd be a top 5 pick. But he's both. He's unbelievable ball skills. I would play him both ways if I could. Andrew Berry, the Browns GM, has said that they'd probably use him more as a receiver because he can touch the ball 100 times a season, whereas if he's corner, he's only touching the ball a couple times a game. Now, who's going to throw him the ball? That's another question. They traded with the Eagles. They got Kenny Pickett now. They just signed Joe Flacco. There's also been some late rumblings here. Maybe they could trade back into the first round, get his college teammate Shedeur Sanders, pair those two up together. Then they go from Jackson State together to Colorado State together to Cleveland together. But Travis Hunter is too good to pass up. A two-way player. It's like having Shohei Ohtani. You can play him both ways. Just let him do both. He'll be awesome, and you won't regret it. That's my pick here, too, for the Cleveland Browns.
Wow, well said there, Moles. Listen, extremely incredible talent. I mean, the reason why he won the Heisman Trophy, and it'll be interesting to see where he lands and how he fits in and how they use him and which scheme he fits in best, whether it be offense or defense. But Barrett, you are now on the clock representing the Giants. Moles said that Cleveland could trade back in to grab Shedeur, but what do you have the Giants doing here?
If we were doing a real draft, the Giants probably would have traded out of this pick because at this point, they need a quarterback, but they will go out and they signed 2 quarterbacks that started last year. I don't understand what they're doing there. They need a quarterback in the worst way. But at the end of the day, they're going to get the best player in the draft. I know you guys said those first 2 players are, the best player. No, this is the best player. Abdul Carter, Penn State edge rusher, 6'3", 250 pounds. Jump off the ball. He's probably the most gifted athlete in this draft as far as, how he brings everything to the table on the field. He can turn the corner, great ankle bend. He's just ferocious in how he rushes the passer. He's put it together probably the best that you can come out of Penn State with the number 11 from Michael Parsons. Abdul Carter is by far to me, the best player in this draft.
A diehard Eagles fan going to the Giants. That will be interesting. Although Abdul Carter has said his allegiances to any Eagle are gone because he's an elite. He's married to the team that drafts him, is what I'm trying to say. But here we go. Dave, you are on the clock as the Patriots.
I am, and every year I pull names out of a hat to see the order of our draft, and I think I end up fourth every year, but that's okay. It's just my luck. I'm going to go Will Campbell here, and I think the Patriots would love to get Abdul Carter. They'd love to get Travis Hunter. Maybe this is the best thing for them. They get to protect their young quarterback Drake May. They get the best offensive tackle in this draft. I know people are worried that he has little arms. I don't know. You watch him play, they don't show up. That doesn't seem to be an issue with him. I know Armin Membu might be the sexier pick. Maybe he has a higher upside, but Will Campbell's like hitting your drive right down the fairway, right? He's just a really good pro in the waiting. I think he's the right pick for them. They need to build on the trenches. I think they do that with the fourth pick.
Rube, we are back at you. You were on the clock with the Jaguars. What do you think they do?
I got the Jaguars taking Mason Graham, the defensive lineman from Michigan. Jaguars defense, they need a lot of help. They were terrible last year, 31st in the league, won 4 games. Doug Peterson gets fired. They were terrible against the run. They gave up over 150 rushing yards per game over the last 10 weeks of the season. Now, Graham's a little small. He's about 6'3", 305, 310. But he really makes up for it. He's got great strength, great quickness. He's fast. Not a lot of interior linemen go this high. Quinnen Williams is the last one. But I think Graham's going to be a stud. I think he's a great fit for the Jaguars. They've got to go defense. They got to start working on that. And I think Graham's a good way to do it.
Mike Mulhern, you are on the clock with the Raiders, and you think they're going to take a guy who said he wants to have the kind of impact with that team that Saquon had with the Eagles.
Yeah, let's continue the year of the running back. We're going Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty. I went with the Heisman winner with my first time around. This time we'll go with the Heisman runner-up. Listen, the Raiders last year, their leading rusher was Alexander Madison. He had 420 yards. They were the worst running team in the NFL, less than 80 yards per game. They take Jeanty. He's a monster. Pete Carroll's 73 years old. He just took that job. He's not trying to build a winner slowly. He wants to win now. He wants the immediate impact. Jeanty's going to give you that. I just saw an awesome stat from Field Yates the other day. Jeanty had 2,601 yards rushing last year. He was the number 1 rusher in the country, obviously, number 2 all time. He had 1,711 yards after contact. That was second most in college football. So if you just took his yards after contact, he was second in the country. He's unbelievable. Chip Kelly gets him in that offense. Chip's going to run him into the ground. They've added Geno Smith at quarterback. They're trying to improve immediately. Not every organization is really capable of and trying to win a Super Bowl. I feel like the Raiders are searching for some relevancy right away. That's why they make that Geno trade. You get a running back in there. You have Brock Powers that you run the passing game through, and you go from there. And that's my pick here for Oakland, or for Vegas. Sorry.
Vegas, Oakland, LA, all of the above. It all qualifies because that team has been moved around from place to place, but Las Vegas is the home now. And Barrett Brooks, the Jets have always been stuck in New York as the, second fiddle. But what do you think they do here?
Well, the Jets need to, go out and find somebody to really protect their new quarterback in Justin Fields. So they're going to get Armand Bimbu. Really pick who you want as far as the best tackle in this draft. Some guys say Campbell, somebody say Membu. I think it's Membu. He has a higher upside as far as athleticism. He does a lot. Great hands, great punch, quick twitch, very athletic, agile, climbs, on run blocks and is able to, work well out in space. So I think he is, either 1A or 1B as far as best tackles in this draft. So, that's a great pickup for them, protecting Justin Fields, giving him an opportunity to push the ball down the field.
All right, Membu, offensive tackle off the board. Dave, the Panthers are on the clock. You are the war room leader. Who do you make as the selection here at number 8?
I'm going with Jalen Walker here. Really an edge player, kind of a hybrid tweener type, 6'1", 240, 245 in that area. Played off-ball linebacker earlier in his career, but he has the explosiveness to really be a big-time player in the NFL off the edge, and that's where I think the Panthers are going to play him. Both Dan Morgan and Dave Canales very complimentary talking about Jalen Walker. Maybe it's a smokescreen. I know it's smokescreen season, but this pick just seems like the perfect match for that team. They need some excitement down there in Carolina. They need some help on defense. I think Walker really is the guy to get it done. But as we'll see in this draft, a lot of different types of edge rushers. He's super explosive, though. I think he's the most explosive of that bunch after Abdul Carter, and I think he goes 8 to the Panthers.
Rube, you were on the clock at number 9. A fantastic selection here. Interesting because David Carr could be out with a season with a shoulder injury, so maybe the Saints are handcuffed to pick a signal caller. But what do you think they do?
Yeah, and I actually made this pick before we heard about David Carr's shoulder injury that might require surgery. Could knock him out for a good chunk of the season or the whole season. He's still a 34-year-old veteran quarterback who's never won a playoff game, by the way. He's been around forever. Shedeur Sanders. I think the Saints, you got Kellen Moore going down there. He's trying to build something. And I think there's been a little anti-Shedeur Sanders sentiment just because of all the hype around that program. And I mean, gosh, they're retiring his number and he just got done playing there. It's kind of absurd. But the bottom line is he's a really good player. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in history. He got no help from his O-line. He got sacked almost 100 times over the last 2 years. Showed incredible toughness dealing with that. Popped back up every time and made plays. Took a ton of hits. Didn't come out of the game. You combine his accuracy, his ability to throw. He's not a big rusher, but he can move around the pocket and make plays from unorthodox positions and across his body. He's got some things to work on. He holds onto the ball too long sometimes, but he's got Kellen Moore down there. He's got Doug Nussmeier to work with. And I just think he's going to be a star in this league. And a lot of people are probably rooting against him because of all the hype, because of his dad and all that. But at this point for the Saints, they've been looking for a quarterback since Drew Brees retired. And I think this is the guy.
Yeah, Cordell Stewart's number's not retired, but Shedeur and Travis Hunter will be hanging up there. But nonetheless, we move on. Pick number 10. Ooh, Mike Mulhern, you were on the clock with the Bears trying to improve their offense. What do you think they do?
Yeah, well, they spent a ton of money on Ben Johnson to be their head coach, came over from the Lions, was their OC. He's the king of the trick play, so let's get him a guy that he can move all around. That's Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. Ben Johnson last year, he's having offensive linemen even throw passes. He called one for Penei Sewell to throw. You know, that's how he went down swinging in the playoffs against the Commanders. Warren can do it all. They used him as a wildcat quarterback. He threw 6 passes, was the Mackey Award winner as the top tight end in the country, lined up as a short yardage runner as well. He could do a little bit of everything. He's a tough dude. He wears number 44 because of John Riggins. His dad was a big Washington fan. He grew up in Virginia. You have DJ Moore and Rome Odunze on the outside at receiver. You get Warren in the middle. You get to move him all around. Another weapon for Caleb Williams. The one knock, I guess, on Warren, he's 23 years old. He's really only had one great year of production, so maybe there's some thought that he's maxed out. But I think Ben Johnson can get the most out of him here at pick number 10.
Probably a few tight ends with first-round grades here, but he is the first one off the board at 10th overall to the Bears. And Dave, the Cowboys are coming up, but we got Barrett with the 49ers on the clock right now. What do you think the 49ers do?
Well, man, they went through the war of attrition and they lost the battle. You know, they fought the law and the law won. I mean, they had almost 20 guys out, from injuries, and it's about time they start to look at, a 15-year pro, probably, one of the best. He's going to have a gold jacket, in Trent Williams. He's probably too long in the tooth to even be playing right now. But I think they go in and find somebody to replace him now. Kelvin Banks Jr., Texas tackle, 6'5".
You stop taking offensive linemen all the time.
I know, man, but I mean that's what wins championships, man, and that's what that's what these teams need to do. I mean, it just so happens that teams that I have major weaknesses in the offensive line department. So you look at Calvin, Banks Jr. from Texas, ran a 5.1 40 at 6'5", 315. So he's explosive, plays well, quick feet, drive blocks, he dips. He gets into the block. He's able to, fold his hips through. And I like him because he was a former basketball player like myself. You know what I mean? So I think that's a great pickup for them. They need offensive line help. And in order for them to run the offense that they want to run, especially with running the ball, they're going to need some new talent on that offensive line. So, yes, I'm going with Kelvin Banks Jr.
All right, Kelvin Banks Jr. off the board. Offensive tackles always at a premium in the first round, especially near the top of the draft. But Dave, the Cowboys are on the clock, and they are a team that is trying to find some way to figure out how to get deep into the postseason. What do they do here at the 12th pick to try to help with that?
Yeah, and it's not like, they haven't been very successful at this. So I'm trying to put myself in Jerry's shoes, and what's Jerry gonna do? I don't know. There's a receiver
You
in
really
that
want to do that,
state
Dave? Do
who
you
ran
really
a
want to do that?
4.29, right? Like I think we know where he might go with this. Matthew Golden from Texas played his first couple years at the University of Houston. He's an absolute burner, but he also had some production this past season at Texas. I think they need a compliment for CeeDee Lamb, who's been a really great player for them for a long time now. And I'm not even sure Golden is the perfect compliment, but again, in Jerry's shoes, 4.29, tough to turn down. And I do think he will be a pretty good pro. So I'm going with Matthew Golden from Texas. Maybe he's not the best receiver in this draft, but it kind of feels like the momentum is pointed his way to being the first one selected. And that's what I have happening here.
Back-to-back Texas players off the board as Jerry gets his burner, so to speak. But Rube, we're on the clock with the Dolphins. There was a reporter out there speculating that Jalen Ramsey and a pick swap for Devontae Smith, but we're going to ignore that and just listen to you make the selection here with the Dolphins at number 13.
Yeah, I think we already gave that too much credence, more than it deserves. Dolphins, they need help up front. They need help on the O-line. I'm going to channel my inner Barrett here. Their guards were terrible last year. Robert Jones left as a free agent. Liam Eichenberg's back, but he's not very good. So I'm going to go Tyler Booker here, the O-lineman from Alabama. He's exactly what they need, and he's a guy that, look, there's some O-linemen in this draft that opinions are varied on, and Booker's a guy that could go anywhere in the middle of this first round to late in the first round. But I think for Miami, he's a great pick. He's a good scheme fit. He's a name that you just keep hearing with the Dolphins. They really seem interested in him, and he's got his old college quarterback, or Alabama quarterback, Tua, down there. So I think that's a pretty good fit.
4 offensive linemen off the board. We're at pick number 14, motoring along right here. Thank you, gentlemen, for keeping it tight. Leaves us time for some discussion on the back end. But Mike, you were on the clock. The Colts need to improve. What do you think they do here with the 14th pick?
Yeah, they do need to improve pretty much everything, I would say. Barrett keeps taking offensive linemen. I'm going to keep taking skill guys. In fact, I'm taking another tight end, Colston Loveland from Michigan. Some people say they like him better than Tyler Warren. He's a smooth route runner, big body. Didn't have a ton of production last year, but was hurt. He missed a few games. Was a big part of the national championship team the year before. Shane Steichens hitched his wagon to Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. Not a very enviable position to be in, but you got to get those guys some help. Loveland can work the middle of the field, catch a lot of balls for them. And, that Colts team, they're in trouble. They took Richardson 4th overall a couple years ago. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be the answer there either. I think Shane Steichen might be on his way out after this year if things don't turn around for them. The good thing is they are in a bad division, so they could potentially turn things around in a hurry. But yeah, he had pretty erratic quarterback play in Ann Arbor last year. Something he'll be used to this year in Indianapolis as well with Richardson and Daniel Jones.
Dallas Clark is not walking through that door, so Colston Loveland will be the tight end du jour there in Indianapolis. But we are at pick number 15. Barrett, a guy I know you like that you are thinking about selecting, but the Falcons, you think they take an edge here, huh?
Yeah, I do. I think they get Michael Williams, another Georgia Bulldog, somebody that the Eagles would love to have on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, this kid right here is 6'5", 260. Georgia guy, like I said, he explodes out of stance. 30% of the tackles he made were tackles for loss while his career at Georgia. So he's explosive, plays very, very long. He needs to learn how, a couple more pass rushing moves. He just kind of like bullied offensive linemen, his career at Georgia, but he can play inside at the 3 technique, defensive tackle, and he can play outside at rush end. And that's what makes him a good pick, for a team like the Falcons who need a little more pass rush. They didn't have a lot last year, and once they get their defense going, their offense is already in a position where they're following suit. So, I mean, he's a special player going into that system, and I think he can really, really be good as a pass rusher on the outside.
Halfway home, Dave. The Cardinals are on the clock with the 16th pick. What do you think they do?
Yeah, we're in a fun part of the draft now because Barrett takes Mykel Williams, a guy I think the Eagles will be interested in. I have another guy the Eagles will be interested in, Walter Nolan, defensive tackle from Ole Miss. And I know people are going to listen to this and say, oh, he's not going to go that early. This is a good reminder that things happen in the draft you don't expect. And I look at Walter Nolan as a super aggressive, a guy who can penetrate as an interior defensive lineman. That's a valuable skill to have in the NFL. He's a little undersized. In a lot of ways, he kind of reminds me of Milton Williams a little bit from a body type perspective, can play inside, can play outside. And I think back to free agency, and I always thought Milton would be a great fit for the Cardinals in free agency, ends up going to New England, but they can go get a younger 3-tech in Walter Nolan who can plug and play. They bring in Calais Campbell as a free agent. He's 38 years old. He's the perfect guy to teach a young Walter Nolan who did take a visit to visit Jonathan Gannon and the Cardinals out in Arizona. So I understand that this probably seems a little early based on consensus. I don't think it's that much of a stretch, and I think Nolan would actually be a really good pick for the Cardinals.
Yeah, and of course, everybody out there, remember, we're doing this assuming no trades or movement up or down or what have you in the first round, which is very unlikely, particularly with a guy like Howie Roseman trying to pounce at any opportunity that's available. But we move on. Pick number 17, Rube, your expertise is once again needed. The Bengals are on the clock. What do they do?
Yeah, we'll continue the run on defensive linemen here. I got them going. Kenneth Grant, D-tackle from Michigan, played on that great Michigan defense. He's more of a run stuffer than a big-time pass rusher, although he's got traits that should allow him to develop that part of his game in the NFL. But when you're the Bengals and you're playing in that division with the Ravens and the Steelers, even Cleveland, those are teams that want to run the ball. And that division is a running division, and you need a guy like this who can plug up the running lanes. And I think he'll be a good addition as far as what they need, what that division offers. You're playing twice a year against teams that want to run it 40 times a game. So that's the pick. I think he's another guy that would make sense for the Eagles if he drifts down toward 32. But I got him going to Cincinnati.
Okay. Mr. Mulhern, the Seahawks, a team in a bit of flux right now. Where do you think they go with the 18th pick?
Yeah, they've got Mike McDonald as the head coach. He was once the defensive coordinator at Michigan. Didn't quite cross paths with my pick here, but I'm going with Will Johnson, the corner, out of Michigan. He got there the year after McDonald left, but surely he was involved in that recruiting process. He was a 5-star kid coming out, 3-year starter at Michigan. The Seahawks have had a really weird offseason. They trade Geno Smith. They trade DK Metcalf. They didn't want to pay either of those guys. Then they turn around and pay Sam Darnold and Cooper Kupp, who are inferior players. Pretty weird decision-making there, but you get another corner. You pair him with Devin Witherspoon, who was their first-round pick a couple years ago. Johnson only played 6 games last year, was hurt a lot, didn't run at the combine or at his pro day, so kind of tells you he's not a top-end speed guy, but he's a great zone corner, can read and react, make a lot of plays, and I think he'd be a great fit in Seattle as they maybe try to rebuild their own new form of the Legion of Boom. You have Witherspoon on one side, you put Johnson on the other side.
Barrett, there's going to be some people hanging around waiting to hear their name called in this first round that may or may not have their name called. But at 19, you don't think the Buccaneers will have a problem calling this guy's name from Alabama?
Yeah, Jahad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama. He has the prototype size for a linebacker, 6'3", 235, ran a 4.5 flat 40. Levante David hadn't had anybody next to him, in a while. They got rid of Devin White. We had him for a little bit. We got rid of him also. But, he can come in. He does a lot of stuff great. What I like about him, he's a high production guy, makes a lot of tackles. He's one of those guys that he has burst when he reads it. Has a little bit of a problem getting off blocks, but he will get, to a point where that'll be secondhand to him and he'll be able to go out there and make some plays. I just think that, you can put him anywhere. You can, he can reroute tight ends and cover running backs. Really, really good paper, and push come to shove, you need some production on the outside as far as rushing the passer. He can do that too. He does have an injury right now. He has a shoulder, but they said he's going to be back for camp. But Jahad Campbell is somebody that I think, and he's a local kid too, South Jersey kid that can come in and play for that Bucs defense.
Dave, let's go a mile high with pick number 20. The Broncos are on the clock. What do you think they do?
Every year we talk about how teams don't just draft for need, but this is such a glaring need for the Broncos. Javonte Williams not there anymore. They just don't have a running back on the roster that they can play right now. So Amarian Hampton from North Carolina is the pick, kind of a battering ram type player, but also has some production out of the backfield as a receiver. So I think this is a kind of an easy pick for them. If he's there, you just take this running back. He becomes your starter. He's your 3-down back, and then you go from there. They could go receiver. The receivers are starting to fall a little bit here in this draft, but Hampton just feels like the right pick for them. It's a really popular pick in mock drafts, but for good reason. They need a running back, and they find one.
They need a running back. They find one. Rube, the Steelers need a quarterback. They don't have one. Aaron Rodgers, does he have them handcuffed? Is that kind of an inevitable situation? But what do you think they do here with this pick? Interesting selection.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are Mason Rudolph or Skylar Thompson fans, but everything Dave just said, I mean, these GMs are always going to say we don't draft for need, and then they go draft for need. I mean, that's just the way the draft is. Yeah, you have to sometimes if you don't have anybody at the position, and that's the situation the Steelers are in. Obviously, nothing's gotten done with Aaron Rodgers, and Jackson Dart, to me, is an intriguing guy. I think he could go anywhere. I really don't have a good sense of where he's going to wind up. But when he was available at 21, and I just have him drop into the Steelers, I just think it makes too much sense. They need a quarterback, let's be honest. And I think if they were really enthused about Aaron Rodgers, he would be in Pittsburgh by now, and he's not. Jackson Dart started out at USC and then 3 years at Mississippi, and this past year just really blossomed, kind of a late bloomer. But led the league in just about everything. Accurate, intelligent, instinctive, puts the ball in places where receivers can catch it and get yards after the catch. Like every young quarterback coming out, he needs some work. He needs some technique work. That'll happen. I think it's a great place for him. The Steelers have been looking for that guy since Ben. I thought it was going to be Kenny Pickett. I don't want to throw too many strays his way.
Super Bowl champ you're talking about.
I mean, listen, that's right. If Jackson Dart is there at 21, the Steelers have to take him.
Yeah. He and Jalen Milroe, late additions to being invited to Green Bay to be there for the opening round. You like Dart over Milroe though for the Steelers?
Yeah, I do. And Milroe's kind of a late, I don't know, late addition to this mix, and I think he's got a chance to be really good. Jalen, a guy named Jalen from Alabama, right? Where can you go wrong? I just think Dart's more NFL ready. Milroe might have a higher ceiling, but man, I think Dart's the pick there at 21.
Okay. Just wanted to follow up on that, but we will have plenty of time for discussion at the end as we're moving along here. And Mike Mulhern, the Chargers are on the clock with the 22nd pick, and who is coming to that beautiful city?
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh needs some weapons for Justin Herbert, so he goes with Teteroa McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona. He's a big dude, 6'5", 220 pounds, ran a 4.53 at his pro day. Super productive, over 1,300 yards each of his last 2 years at Arizona. An absolute monster. I think he's the best receiver in the class, not named Travis Hunter. I don't think he actually falls this far. Barrett, I know you called a couple of his games this year, a game or two at Arizona.
Love him too, yeah.
Yeah, he's a stud. And then I'm just curious what the Justin Herbert truthers are going to say if he gets this guy paired with Ladd McConkey when he doesn't win a playoff game again. Are they still going to rank him ahead of Jalen Hurts? They still seem to do that. I don't think they should, but this guy will certainly help Herbert maybe finally get over that hump and win a playoff game.
Speed, he does a lot of stuff very, very well. Consistency.
Hey, Barry, you said I laid eyes on him myself, so I can tell you exactly what he looks like out there. Let's get to your pick, Barrett. The home team, Packers. I'm sure this pick, whoever it may be, will be met with a ton of acclaim and applause and excitement. But who do you think they pick here?
Well, with the draft being, it's going to be hype, man. So at this point, I really think that this cornerback has become a problem for them. Jair Alexander, they're trying to trade him. They don't know what they're going to do with him. Had rash injuries in the secondary last year. So I think they go out and get another guy from Texas, Jahdae Barron, cornerback. He's really a slot cornerback, but he has great size too. You know, I mean, I like what he brings to the table. He's one of those guys you can come in and, you know, he redirects route even in the slot. He's able to go out there, play it physical at the point of attack. He's more of a zone cornerback, but he can help their defense a lot. So I think Jade will be a guy to come in at 5'11", 194, ran a 4.3 40, and really be a day one starter either in the slot or maybe they can move him to the outside. They don't know how well he can play man to man, but you know, just from his athleticism, it shouldn't be a problem for him. So I mean, Jade Barron is a great pick for the Packers, and they'll be hyped in that stadium getting him.
Dave, number 24 with the Vikings is coming your way. What do you think they do here? Interesting selection.
Yeah, well, you look at Harrison Smith, who's been a really good player for them for a long time. He's 36, so time to find his replacement. And you have your choice of the safeties right now, and it's a difficult decision. You have Nick Emanwari from South Carolina. You have Malachi Starks from Georgia. I had them taking Starks, who probably is the higher floor player among those two. Emanwari is an incredible athlete, so much so that you forget Malachi Starks is a pretty good athlete too, and he's proven it at a really high level for a long time. So I go with Starks here. I think he helps solidify that defense. You look at safeties in the draft in the first round, it's been kind of a crapshoot. We've had some not such great successes over the last few years, teams taking safeties in the first round. But once you get into the 20s, you feel like it's a little bit better of a gamble. So I have them taking Starks here, and it leaves Emanwari still on the board.
Interesting. I'm going to go with a quick follow-up here to you, Dave, because you got a guy like Starks who falls this far in the draft, and there's about 8 picks before the Eagles pick. They lost Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Darius Slay, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I'm probably forgetting somebody else. Is Starks a guy you would trade up for if you're this close to your pick and he's right there?
It's not that close, Danny. I mean, this is when you're talking the first round, 32 to 24 is not insignificant. And we know that the Eagles value positions differently, right? They've never taken a safety in the first round. And that doesn't mean that they won't take a safety in the first round. But then you compound that by saying, are they going to trade up that many spots to take one? Probably not. You could see a trade up for a defensive lineman. A guy like Michael Williams, if he starts to slip, maybe they love a Walter Nolan if he's in the 20s. But to trade up and take Starks, even though they probably love the player, I don't think that would happen.
All right, there you have it. Very well said, Dave. Let's move on. Rube, you were on the clock as the Texans are making a pick at 25. Who do they select here?
Yeah, Ohio State's really become the cradle of wide receivers, and every year, like 1 or 2 get drafted in the first round. Marvin Harrison, Crystal Olave, Jamison Williams, Garrett Wilson, Paul Warfield. you go back a ways to back in the day, but when you look at Emeka Egbuka at 25, I don't think he'll be there. If he is, Texans got to jump all over him, match him up with his college quarterback. They had great chemistry playing together back in Columbus back in the day. So I think it's a terrific pick for them. If he's there, he's not going to get past them. Talking about C.J. Stroud, of course, at Ohio State. I think there's something to be said for that. You see it with Devontae and Jalen Hurts having that background playing together in college and then getting to the NFL and having that starting point. So they have great chemistry. Texans lost Stephon Diggs to the Patriots. They've got Nico Collins. They need more than that. And I think this kid would be a great fit there in Houston.
Mike Mulhern, Ice Cube had a good day riding around L.A. way back when. Who will it be a good day for with this Rams pick at number 26?
Well, Reuben ruined my good day. That's what I was going to take Emeka Egbuka there at 26. But instead, I'm sticking with receiver.
Because
we'll
they
go
lose
with
Cooper Kupp? Is that why? Excuse me, not to interrupt you. Because they lost Cooper or –
Yeah, they did. I mean, they did sign Devontae Adams, but I just think long-term receiver is a need for them. And I also think they're just trying to maximize that win now window. They have Matthew Stafford. You have Puka Nacua on one side. You have Devontae Adams. And I think Burden can be the perfect fit in the slot. He was a monster as a sophomore 2 years ago, had over 1,200 yards, was a first-team All-American. really took a step back this past year, only 676 yards. Was a lot of underneath stuff that he caught, but he was the number 3 recruit nationally coming out of high school. It was Travis Hunter 1, Walter Nolan 2, and then Burden was number 3. So he's got, everything you want at the position. He could be a big-time playmaker. And I also think this spot, number 26, you just asked Dave about a potential trade. I think this is a spot where the Eagles could look to move up. The Rams don't have a second-round pick. I wouldn't give up my second-round pick to move up from 32. But the Eagles' third-rounder, number 96, that kind of covers the difference between the two, or maybe you give them a 4 and a couple 5s. I just think this is a spot where, the Rams have done an excellent job drafting in the middle rounds. If the Eagles have another guy or only have like one guy left on their board at this point with a first-round grade, this could be a spot where they look to jump up, and then the Rams kind of load up on mid-round picks, which they've done an excellent job picking of late.
Barrett, the Ravens, a team that just cannot seem to get over the hump. Who do they pick here at 27 to help them get to the promised land?
Well, this may be somebody that can get them over the hump, especially from the defensive side of the ball. They run that 3-4, and they need pass rush. They were able to generate pass rush from stunts and blitzes, but not necessarily one-on-one on the outside. So I think they go out and get a linebacker and edge guy, James Pierce Jr., from out of Tennessee. I don't see it, but I didn't see it, but they say he's 6'5", 245 pounds. He gained that for the combine, ran a 4.40. But he's explosive. That explosive first step. He's one of the top 2 edge rushers in this draft, and everybody talked about, top 2, 3. He does a lot of things well. I don't necessarily think he would really be somebody the Eagles would, go out there and get. But his production is great. Does have explosive speed. Can, speed to bull. And, I just don't think he has enough in his back pocket, to be a guy to come in and play right now. He needs to get his NFL body. But he's definitely somebody that's very, very talented, has great pass rushing moves, great ankle bend. And, he'll probably be a star in that Ravens defense from that edge position or linebacker position in their defense.
Dave, the Lions, a very cool, fun story last year. Did not work out for them. There was another team destined for greatness, which was the Philadelphia Eagles. But what do you think they do here at 28 to improve and try to get their team in a better position this season?
Yeah, it's time to get some of these edge rushers off the board. And a lot of different flavors of edge rushers in this draft. Shamar Stewart goes here at 28 to the Lions. Definitely a different body type than some of the other guys we've been talking about and we'll talk about in this draft. Big guy, 6'5", almost 270 pounds, so kind of a more traditional defensive end. They have Aiden Hutchinson coming back from injury, but they need more than that if you're the Lions to get after the quarterback. Now, the one problem with Shamar Stewart, not very productive in college, just a sack and a half in each of his last 3 years. So you worry about that a little bit, but he does go to the combine, super explosive athlete, maybe not the most flexible around the edge, but you look at like the pure athleticism, it stands out. Vertical of 40 inches, broad jump 10-11. So like just big physical athletic guy. He needs some polish, but if you put him opposite Aiden Hutchinson, some good things could happen.
Man, the NFC East was had a monopoly on the NFC Championship game with the Commanders and the Eagles there. The Commanders have had a fantastic run here, but I'm curious, Rube, what do you think they do here to continue building what they had?
I'm going to continue the run on edge rushers here. Barrett took James Pierce for the Ravens. Dave took Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M for the Lions. I'm going to go Donovan Ezeraku from Boston College going to Washington.
Good
when
pick.
you're in the position that Washington's in, they're chasing the Eagles right now, and I think it's pretty clear from the NFC Championship game just exactly how big that gap is. And Washington had a good year, but what's the strength of the Eagles? It's their offensive line, it's their tackles. So you try to attack their strength and get stronger at that position. Washington's got some good pass rushers, but I'll tell you what, I think in our draft, Ezeraku is the 6th edge off the board. He's better than the 6th edge in this draft. Boston College, look, he's not the biggest guy, 6'2", 250, but the production was tremendous. 16 and a half sacks last year, second most in the BCS. There's going to be questions about level of competition at Boston College. You remember Eagles took Mike Mamula, an edge out of BC in 1995, 30 years ago. But he had a great combine, had a great Senior Bowl, really showed that he can play against the top offensive tackles in the league. That's the pick for the Commanders. They're going to go head to head for the Eagles for the next few years with their young quarterback. And, you get an edge who can challenge Jordan Mailata, who can challenge Lane Johnson. It's certainly going to help that team.
Before we
Scary in
move,
the division. Scary in the division.
You know what
Yeah.
else is scary? That draft was 30 years ago. Anybody else know who was in that draft 30 years ago?
Rube, I wanted to clarify. You feel like the gap between the Eagles and Commanders isn't as big as some people think?
No, I think it's significant, and I think that NFC Championship game showed it. But Washington did beat the Eagles, and I think with their young quarterback, they're an ascending team. They got some good young players. They got a lot of older veterans as well. They're an older team than the Eagles are. But I just think when you look at what the Eagles' strength is, it's that O-line, it's the trenches. And if you're Washington, you got to attack them and go at where the Eagles are good, and that's where getting a top edge is going to help.
Mike Mulhern, you were on the clock, and there has been a run on edge rushers. 1, 2, 3. Who do the Bills take here at number 30?
Yeah, I didn't want to get left out of the party, so I'm going to continue the run. We'll take Mike Green, the edge rusher from Marshall. Rube mentioned Donovan Ezeraku was second in the country in sacks. This guy was first. He had 17. That's the good. He's, an elite pass rusher, great moves. He's got some character concerns, multiple sexual assault allegations. Has never been convicted. He's denied any wrongdoing. It's interesting. Howie Roseman has spoken recently about how certain character issues, they get those guys completely off their board. That's why Big Dom gets paid the big bucks to look into these guys. So it'd be interesting to see if Mike Green fell all the way to 32, if they would actually select him. I know our pal Ray Didinger raves about the player, and just looking at the film, you could see why. And honestly, if he checked out entirely, he's probably long gone by this point, goes in the top 15. But because of those concerns, he falls all the way down here to number 30 and the Buffalo Bills.
Not only never been convicted, he's never been charged. So I think that's an important distinction to make too.
Surely, yeah. It was multiple allegations. He left the Virginia program in 2022 as a result, and then ended up at Marshall. So, yeah, obviously these teams do their due diligence. So we'll see how it plays out for Mike Green on draft night.
There it is. 1, 2, 3, 4 edge rushers taken in a row. A complete edge on edge rushers at the bottom of our draft in the opening round, according to the experts here. A little bit more analysis, please, from you, Barrett. Let's hear who you think the Chiefs will pick at number 31.
Well, now we're going to stop on the edge rushers and get to the guys that block those edge rushers, something that I know a little bit about. So we're going to talk about offensive line.
Rube, is he picking another offensive lineman, Rube? Is he going again with another offensive lineman?
Other than Abdul Carter, which is a no-brainer, every pick's been O-line.
but this is warranted because, Big Red and that Kansas City team got their butts smashed in the Super Bowl because of that offensive line. The defense of the Eagles just tore them apart. They didn't even have to blitz them. They rushed the passer. So I think they're going to go, and Big Red's going to go with, what he's done in the past. When he first got to Philadelphia, what did he do? He already had a guy there in Big Trey at the left tackle, so he needed to solidify that right side, so he went out and got probably the best guy, to play right side. I think he does the same thing this time and goes and drafts a guy, Josh Simmons, out of Ohio State. Offensive tackle, 6'5", 317, natural waist bender, smooth out of the stance, very good at finishing blocks. And what makes him ideal for this Kansas City team, he can play guard and tackle. He played guard for the majority of his career at Ohio State, but kicked him out to left tackle and played very well there. Great foot quickness. And, he can break guys down in the run. He can drive guys off the ball. So this is an intriguing pick for Big Red, and he needs an offensive line because that's definitely his Achilles heel on his team right now.
We have reached the 32nd overall selection, and there is a Super Bowl winning team on the clock. Dave, the Eagles have the 32nd pick. Very interesting. Do they trade up, trade back? Let's just hear who you think that they should select, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into it.
Sure. Well, let me set up the situation first, Danny, because I think this draft, the way it's played out, pretty good. You have some good options left. Jaden Milroe still available, right? So you have Milroe. Maybe a team wants to sneak up there at 32. The Eagles or field those phone calls. For me, this came down to two players. One is Nick Emanwari, the safety from South Carolina. The other is Derek Harmon from Oregon, the defensive tackle. It's not an easy decision.
Nope.
For me, the tie here went to the defensive tackle, Derek Harmon, who, for some reason hasn't garnered as much buzz as I think he probably deserves in this pre-draft process. He's really good, guys, and that doesn't mean that Eman Wari is not a really good player too. And with his size and speed, that combo, his athleticism, I think that would be a really good pick. But I think Harmon makes a lot of sense, especially for the Eagles and the way they value certain positions. He's 6'4", 313. When he was a little heavier, he wasn't as effective as the disruptor. So you do have to keep an eye on his weight at the NFL level, but that's why the Eagles pay so much money to make sure that they have the right nutrition and weight staff in place to make sure these guys are on top of what they need to do. And then you look at Harmon, he's right away fills in for Milton Williams. You lose Milton Williams, $104 million contract. You need someone next to Jalen Carter who can win one-on-ones. Harmon can do that. We talked about Walter Nolan earlier in the draft. He could do that as well, and he's been the name that's been associated most often with the Eagles. But if he's gone, which is very possible, and Harmon is somehow still there, I think this would be a run the pick in.
The Eagles, they lose Mekhi Becton, and they have Tyler Steen there. They lose two people on the defensive line, two people in the secondary. How do you quantify whether or not they go with D tackle over edge or, defensive back, or do you like Sidney Brown more there? Do you like Keely Ringo more there as a fill-in in those two other positions? Or how do you quantify that with what's available, what the needs are?
Well, you mentioned edge, and we saw that run of edge rushers. So if there's one of those guys that they think is head and shoulders above the rest of them, then maybe they try to trade up. But in a situation like this, I think that board falls in a really good way where they can sit back at 32 and get a good player. And then we kind of know the tie is going to go to the defensive lineman, right? If they have Eman Wari and Harmon, and we're using those two players because they're the two players who were available in this draft, but pick any two, right? If it's a safety and a defensive lineman and they have them on equal footing, where does the tie go? It goes in the trenches, and that's been their MO for a long time, and I think that'll hold true this year.
Yeah, I mean, I like Nick Eman Wari. I like him a lot, but is he more specialized? Can he play the deep safety with, you have Blankenship, who's actually probably the same player as far as, not necessarily athletically, but the same player as far as schematically what they do here in Philadelphia. So you got to think about those things also.
Guys, looking at the draft as a whole, was there an area of value that you noticed, or a slide that you didn't anticipate, or like Mike Mulhern mentioned, a player that was picked right before you who you thought would go to a different team that would be a better fit?
Well, I just want to chime in here on Dave's pick.
Okay.
Harmon, as he mentioned, kind of surprising he's not going higher in general. Was number one in the country in pressures and hurries for interior pass rushers. So he's got the production. He's very disruptive. If you watch any Oregon, that obviously they were the number one team in the country going into the playoff. Got blown out by Ohio State, but he's making plays all over the field. Unfortunate for him, he wears number 55. So if he came here, I don't think he's getting that one. But I agree with Dave. I think the Eagles would go D tackle over safety just based on positional value. And I mean, the easiest way to look at positional value, Milton Williams got $26 million a year. The Eagles weren't willing to pay Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, $10 million a year. So, they're probably equally as good at their positions, but Milton Williams gets, over, almost 4 times as much money. So I do agree with Dave that I think the tie would certainly go to the defensive tackle. And Danny, you brought up offensive line as well. I think, Gray Zabel from North Dakota State would maybe get some consideration here, but he's more of an interior guy. I don't know if they'd be willing to use a first-round pick on an interior offensive lineman, although they did take Landon Dickerson with an early second-rounder just a couple years ago, and that obviously has worked out very well for them.
I think one of the things that makes this draft so much fun is there's a handful of guys that you really have no idea where they're going to go. I mean, Mike Green's one guy. We don't know what teams think of his off-field issues and how much that's going to hurt him, or if it will at all. Because from a pure talent standpoint, he would be a top 15 pick. I think some of these quarterbacks, Jackson Dart, there's so many diverging opinions on him. Some people like Milroe better. So there's a lot of pieces in there that could go anywhere or not even in the first round. And that kind of makes it unpredictable, and it makes it a lot of fun.
One position that I thought would, have a little more of a highlighted interest in this
Offensive
draft.
line, probably.
Yeah, you would say offensive line, but you know what? Actually, running back, with the success the Eagles had with, Saquon Barkley and teams starting to run the ball more, I thought you'd be a little more interest, more guys getting drafted in the first round. I thought Hampton would have, more of a pick, team wanting to bring him in, or somebody like that, So, I just really thought that the running back position would have a little more, be a little more highlighted in this draft as another draft.
I thought about Hampton at 12 for the Cowboys. I wouldn't be shocked about that. I know Genty was a popular pick for them. Good chance he's gone by the time the Cowboys are on the board. But yeah, like the Cowboys drafting a running back would not surprise anybody.
Absolutely. Even with Saquon's success, I just think there's still, a stigma about drafting running backs because Saquon notwithstanding, their shelf life is going to be short on the average. So you're investing a top pick for a guy that you might have like 2 or 3 good years, where if it's a lineman, he can just have a long career on either side of the ball. Running back shelf life is so short. You pick a guy 12, you're looking at that pick a couple years later, you don't have anything to show for it. So I just think teams are going to be reluctant. You might get 1 or 2 a year in the first round, but beyond that, I think a lot of teams are really reluctant to do it at all.
Right. And I think it's interesting at the running back position. The two best arguably in the league are Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey, who are both top 10 picks, but they didn't reach that level of success really until they went to basically ready-made Super Bowl team. So that's kind of the yin and the yang of taking a running back high. You don't have the team yet to get the most out of them. So you maybe don't reap the benefit of how good a player they are. And in this case, we have Ashton Genty going 6th overall to a pretty bad Raiders team. He might not be able to have the level of production that, certainly not the level of production he had at Boise State.
Almost out of time here, guys. Really quick, I wanted to try to shed some light on the Dallas Goedert situation. Some fans are in the dark on how this might affect how the Eagles draft. There are some tight ends that could be a replacement for him here in the draft. Mason Taylor among them, but maybe not a first-round selection. The Eagles have said they don't have 32 first-round grades for guys, but how will that Goddard situation color what the Eagles do, particularly with moving up or down in the first round?
I personally don't think it'll have any effect on how they draft, because even if they sign him to a 1-year deal and find a way to make it work and keep him for a pay cut, you still have an injury-prone 30-year-old tight end that you're going to have to replace. So if there's a guy there when they pick, whatever Dallas Goedert's status is, I think they would take him.
Yeah, I think it might end up being in like that interim position, right? Because the top 2 tight ends probably well off the board by the time the Eagles draft. And we'll see who's there at 64 and 96. But Howie's so good at maneuvering around the board. If there's a tight end they like on day 2, he'll figure out a way to go get him.
Yeah, and I really think a lot of this is posturing just to get Goddard to take a pay cut. They've been so public talking about, possibly trading him. But I know Barrett on day 2, I know the guy you're looking at is Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green.
Yes.
His former head coach, Scott Loeffler, is now the Eagles QB coach. He had over 1,500 yards, 117 catches last year.
10
I know
touchdowns.
you like that guy.
10 touchdowns, very productive.
For Barrett Brooks, for Mike Mulhern, for Reuben Frank and Dave Zangaro, I'm Danny Pommells. We appreciate you guys listening and watching here this opening round on the clock, first round mock draft. We will see you with a whole lot of coverage here coming up. Be sure to check our website, NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com, as well as the channels for everything that's going on. You can get everything on the NBC Sports app. So we will have extensive coverage coming up, as you will expect. So thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. We'll see you there.